everybody, and welcome to the Gaming Mix podcast, your official podcast from analogstickgaming.com. If you don't know me by now, my name is Jordan, and to my left, as always, is the founder of Analog Stick Gaming, Jeff. How are you, Jeff?
That's not too bad. Doing pretty good.
I don't want to jinx it, Jeff, but we're on a good little run of episodes here, somehow. Something has aligned for us. It's going well. The website is going well. We're getting more news out on the website, so if you haven't been following the website, please go and do that. We're also getting more reviews. One of those games I'll be talking about later in the episode that I've been playing recently, so look out for that. But for now, Jeff, I think we have quite a bit of news to go through this week. And I don't think we have any layoffs. Maybe I'm mistaken, but
Excuse me. No, I couldn't actually. I didn't see any layoffs when I was kind of gathering everything
so
today. So it's
thankfully
kind
this
of a
is
rare
this is
occurrence.
maybe a good week in that sense, but we still have some maybe negative news here and there. So why don't we start going through the news then?
Sure. I'll kind of just start off where my tabs are. So normally we've never really talked about leaks. We've never really talked about rumors or anything like that. It's not something that has been kind of the focus of the website. But I thought this one was actually pretty interesting, and that's Resident Evil 9 could be open world. So according to Twitter user Dusk Golem, who has had a long track record of reporting information about video games before it has been made public, Resident Evil 9 is being developed as an open world game. Dragon's Dogma 2 expanded RE Engine functionality for open world games. The two other games building on this tech are reportedly to be Monster Hunter Wild and Resident Evil 9. So their tweet basically says, so here's a little tidbit I'd share. Capcom often will greenlight new initiatives in threes, closer together. Decent examples are RE7, RE2, and Devil May Cry 5, were all greenlit fairly close together to take advantage of their new RE engine. And the idea to remake RE2 inspired them to also take on RE3 and 4 for a remake initiative. Dragon's Dogma 2 expanded the RE engine functionality for open world games. The two other games building on this tech, again, are reported to be Monster Hunter Wild and Resident Evil 9. While Resident Evil Village allowed players to traverse between several larger semi-open areas, the main series has yet to experiment with a fully open world. Monster Hunter Wild, the sequel to Monster Hunter World, was announced in December of 2023. The game is set for release in 2025, although Capcom has shared few details about the game. More information about the game will be made public in summer 2024, according to Capcom. Capcom has yet to publicly announce the next mainline entry in the Resident Evil series, nor has it announced the next of its remakes. Um, so yeah, like Monster Hunter World is not really open world.
It's
Like
open area, right? It's an
it's
open
yeah,
area
it's
game.
it's open zone, because Sonic Frontiers created that. And yeah, like it'll be interesting to see Monster Hunter Wilds if it is in fact open world because the RE engine is being retooled for it. But if Resident Evil 9 is taking advantage of those tools, I could see it taking place either in kind of like an open city. And it almost makes me wonder if like what would be the best method of conveying that to the player than being able to explore maybe what's left of Raccoon City,
Yeah,
an actual city.
yeah,
Like that
that
would
would be
be
cool.
incredibly interesting because it would bring everything back because like Resident Evil 9 is likely going to be either set in the future with Rose or I think that was her name. Or it's going to go back to the main team.
Yeah, I'm not
But
sure, but
sounds like that's open world.
this is one that I'm really interested in if they do go the open world route because sorry to take a tangent, but we love a good tangent here on the show. But recently I've been playing quite a few open world games and something I've come to the realization of in the last week or so, because I'll talk about another game I've played a little bit of, that I can now publicly speak about, in later on in the show. But I think one of the reasons that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth hasn't been clicking with me is it's just kind of the same open world we've seen from other games. And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean other aspects of the game are not clicking with me, but the actual open worldness of it is almost taking away from the experience for me. And I think that many other players seemed to hit their open world fatigue about 7 or 8 years ago, and they've sort of grown to now like open worlds again. Whereas I'm only just hitting that open world fatigue moment. I'm almost like in the second wave of it. And
Mm.
I would be interested to see what Resident Evil could do in an open world setting that would maybe be different to set it apart from a Ubisoft style game, for example, because I can't imagine Capcom doing something that is, oh, here's a map with 10 million markers on. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, if you excuse me, if you take a look at like Helldivers 2, they've got a system in there where, or a mission type, sorry, where you activate a door as well as rescuing civilians, and then you basically have them go from their bunker to a ship or whatever that has landed down to retrieve them and take them up. So what they could do in Resident Evil is like if there were people still living in Raccoon City or wherever the city is, like let's say it's a just completely different city, and you have to rescue them while also fending off zombie hordes. Like those could be neat little things around the map. Um, there could be like Umbrella Labs and stuff to like,
Yeah.
blow up and whatnot.
Do you know what I'd love to see? And I spoke about this game briefly the other week. I mentioned it briefly, but I'd love to see them also incorporate a little bit of Days Gone and have almost like these hordes that you.
Yeah, that would go against kind of what the zombies have been in that series. Like they've never really had horde mentality unless it was something new. But yeah,
But that's what I mean. I think that could be a way for them to, because I can't imagine they're just going to want to do traditional Resident Evil but on a bigger map. Like I don't.
I think they would though, because like the hordes and stuff for me in Days Gone, they were never scary.
Yeah, that's
They were
fair.
never scary.
That's
Um,
fair.
and like if you take a look at like Resident Evil 2 and 3, where it's in the streets of like Raccoon City and all
Yeah,
that kind of stuff, where the zombies are coming at you, that's way more terrifying.
that is a good point. That's a
So
good point. I just
like,
I wonder. I guess for me, it's I wonder what their spin is, because I want it to be Resident Evil in the way that we know and love it. But I can
yeah,
imagine that if they're doing that open world setting, they're gonna have some sort of spin to separate, kind of how, how like the first person Resident Evils are kind of, people separate them from the third person, right? Because they just have their own style that is kind of unique to those games. I can imagine them wanting something that really sets these open world ones apart outside of, oh, they're just
well,
open world now.
kind of. I mean, like Village is oh sorry, Resident Evil 7 is the only one that's first person because Village now has the third person
Oh,
mode.
yes, it does. I forgot
It,
about that.
so it's the only one that is like really excluded from it. But I think the popularity of 2 remake and 4 remake, I think we're going to get something that plays between those two.
Yeah.
I think 4 kind of
And
refined
what do
everything.
you. And that brings me on to, because it's mentioned in here about they haven't announced, obviously, the next mainline entry yet, and they haven't announced the next remake yet. What do you
Yeah.
think the next remake is going to be, if you could take a guess at that?
Um, Realistically, I could see it being 5, just because
Interesting.
they'll have the number attached to it. But I mean, personally, I hope it's Code Veronica,
So do I.
because
So
I
do
think
I.
that one needs it way more. Um, and it's still one of the best Resident Evil games, like the tank control style ones.
Isn't it just
Um,
just a shout out to Capcom for a minute? Isn't it amazing how they've somehow at one time, I'll be honest, as a gamer about 10 years ago, I thought Capcom wasn't far away from dying. And and look at where they are now. Like what an amazing return to form for them. I feel like every game that
yeah, we'll
they're doing is amazing at the moment.
we'll, we'll talk about some controversy following up on this story. Um, but yeah, like it's Capcom has had a great track record in regards to what they've been doing um, with a lot of their games. Like
apart from the
they've been,
fact apart from the fact that they might be becoming EA. Which
I don't think, like, the thing about it is might be coming is false, because
I
mainly
agree.
because
I agree.
what they're doing right now, and we'll dive into it right now actually, and that is that Capcom has kind of been under fire with the launch of Dragon's Dogma 2
Mhm.
because of all of its DLC. Now, that to me is a dumb issue for the controversy. I think the performance on PC is the bigger story in
Yeah.
regards
I
to it
think
just not
I think that we
running
have to
well.
give. So I thought that this was an issue like when I first heard about it, but in full context of what is actually happening with these
Yeah, so
microtransactions, if you like, I do think it's an issue that's being overreacted to slightly.
yeah, so basically the issue is that Capcom, like they have for the past like 5 to 6 years, have released a slew of kind of in-game items or speed boosts. Essentially, Devil May Cry 5 had them, Resident Evil 4 had them, Monster Hunter World had them, held the special edition for, I think, the Devil May Cry 4 even had them too. This isn't new. This isn't new, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, this is like single microtransactions in a single player game." Like, this is not new. This is, company directive. It's not developer directive. But everything that's being sold as these microtransactions
Yeah,
are items that you can already get in the game. People are like, "Oh my
and
God, they're locking
and
character, being able to
I
recreate your."
I would like to make one point here because they're locking the like redoing your character design and things like that, right? But
No,
is that not what they're locking? What is it they're
no,
locking?
that's literally what I was just about to say. So you can recreate your character about half hour to 60 minutes in the first town.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
what they're not doing on PC right now is the ability to create another game, but
Oh.
that's they're looking
Interesting.
at fixing that.
Interesting.
Um,
Um.
so
I
yeah, like
I just
nothing in the game.
I want to put it this way, right? Before we get into the exact details here, because like you made a point that made me think of some other games. This isn't new. This isn't new for Capcom because they've done
Yeah,
it, like you said, with several of the Resident Evil releases now and a few other games. Also, this is something that Ubisoft have been doing in their single player games, and over there they call them time savers, and you can buy things like XP boosts, like a permanent XP boost, or unlocking all the markers on the map and all that kind of thing. And I want to
yeah,
make 2 points before we go into exactly how they're handling it here. Number one is, in my opinion, if you're going to have microtransactions, single player games is actually the right place to have them because you're not affecting anybody else. Let's say that I'm playing a single player game and I decide, I don't know, let's say I was playing Assassin's Creed Origins and I decide, right, this map is too big for me to go and investigate every single point of interest, but I want to find certain things in this game. If I decide to pay, I believe it was around £2 or £3 to unlock every marker on the map just to save myself time, that does not hurt anybody else. And it doesn't even hurt my experience if that's something
Yeah.
I wanted to do.
And here's the difference too. Like, you can't find these microtransactions, as far as I know, in the game. You literally have to go to your store's marketplace
Oh
to see
wow,
them.
okay.
And and none of these microtransactions were added in the game during the pre-release build for reviews. So reviewers had no idea that they were even there.
However, I
They're like,
was I was told by somebody, and I think Greg Miller also said this on Kind of Funny yesterday. Apparently, it was in the review guide, but a lot of people didn't read the review guide. Apparently, they
yeah, I know
basically
Jez Corden
said,
said he didn't read it because he thought there would be spoilers.
yeah, so apparently it was actually in the review guide that they were going to be adding these things post
Yeah.
launch. The impression I have seen from a lot of people who've played the game, because I own the game but I haven't played it yet, but the impression I've seen from a lot of people is that this is a bit of an overreaction because you can essentially completely ignore all of these microtransactions if you want to.
And
Um,
the thing with the microtransactions as well is that they're earnable in the game. Like, every single thing that they're selling are items that you're just going to stumble across anyways.
I do
Like
that.
fast travel things.
Yeah, that
Um,
that's the only one I have a small issue with is the fast travel one, because I know that they don't want people to fast travel in this game. That's something
you
they've
can.
said, is they don't really want people to fast travel. Like, that's not how they would like you to play the game. So
Yeah, but
then,
you can fast travel and you can earn those things in the game.
yeah,
Like, fast travel's not locked behind
no.
DLC. Like, you
No, and
keep
I
earning
and
them.
I think that was the misconception, right? I think the problem is a lot of this stuff came out. People had heard that you couldn't fast travel in the game or whatever, and then they were like, "Oh, now you can," and that's what I mean. Like, it's a big overreaction because
Yeah.
it like I do think there is a conversation still to be had because this is a bit of a slippery slope. I do agree with that in the sense of it's kind of like in Assassin's Creed, right? In Assassin's Creed, if I decide to buy a permanent XP boost for £5, that's great. But if the game, because it has that microtransaction for a permanent XP boost, is then balanced in such a way that tries to incentivize me to buy that XP boost, that is an issue because these things should always be completely optional, and they should be so optional that if you choose not to do them, they're not really impacting negatively on your experience. And I think that that's not where we are right now. Like, you choosing not to buy some fast travel crystals in Dragon's Dogma 2 isn't really going to negatively impact your experience. But I do think there's a slippery slope where we can't let this sort of stuff get out of control either. So I
Yeah.
think people are right to bring up the conversation. However, there's something I want to kind of push back on quite a bit. And I've seen this with many other games in the past, but it's a practice that I just don't agree with. And us as a gaming community need to get rid of, quite honestly, because it's ruining video games, and in some ways it's really harmful to the people who've made these games, and that is review bombing a game just because you don't like the fact that they've added some microtransactions to it. Those
I've
micro
always said that, like, user reviews are absolutely pointless because they're generally rating um the publishers like the the process around the game, like whether it's
And
microtransactions
it's not just
or
that as well. Like, the
yeah,
problem with user reviews is not enough people are actually, like, I know full well, I actually know people who've done this, right? Who will buy a game on Steam just to leave a review for it, even
yeah,
though they haven't played the game. And it's just like, to me, there does have to be some sort of outlet for user reviews, right? And user reviews are important when they are the genuine ones that are providing genuine feedback and giving genuine
yeah.
thoughts on the game. But when we've got people that literally are review bombing a game because either it's got microtransactions or it's made by a certain company that makes a different plastic box to the company
Well,
that you like.
there's no accountability for legitimacy, and the same thing even with like YouTubers and stuff like that. They don't answer to anyone.
Yeah.
Like basically, like outlets and stuff, like whether it's things like IGN or GameSpot or whatever the
Yeah.
case is they answer to a basic company.
Yes, yeah, and
You know,
I put it this way, and maybe it's me being, being also on that side of the industry, on the developer side and on the creative side, is that I looked at, when I see like Dragon's Dogma 2 comes out, it's getting really great reviews from critics who've actually sat and played the game. Yes,
yeah,
okay,
they played it.
they weren't aware of the microtransactions, or some of them didn't read the guide, so they weren't aware, but most of them have actually gone back and amended their reviews, and most of them still say you can just ignore this stuff. Like I think literally even IGN were like, our reviewer said, just ignore
Yeah,
this stuff.
TLDR.
Like,
Yeah. 'Cause that's the thing, it's like it's not even found in the game. You literally
yeah.
have to go into like your store's
Um,
marketplace to even
and
see
I
them.
just, and when I see then on Steam this game that clearly people are going to love when they play, because I don't know of a game ever in existence that has reviewed that. Critics don't always get it right, but I don't know of a game that has ever reviewed that well that the general gamer then goes on to hate it. Is
That's the
very,
thing is that they're reviewing the process behind the game, like
yeah,
the bullshit behind the game. They're not even reviewing the game.
no,
That's the thing that kind of sucks about this,
yeah.
is that people essentially haven't even played it and they're review bombing it.
Yeah, and they're just deciding, oh, it's bad because I don't like this one thing that I heard, even though I don't even have full
Yeah.
context for it.
Like
And
where was all this fervor with Resident Evil 4 and and like
and look,
Capcom's like the rest of their games in the last
I
five,
want
six
to
years?
put something in reality for people here. Um, there's a reason that going back many years now, Obsidian didn't get a certain amount of money from Bethesda based on one critic review point, because review scores and reception, whether it's from critics or users, matters. And it matters to the individuals that make the game. And if we can all be human for a minute, you think how you would feel if you have spent 5 or 6 years of your life making a game, hoping that people would play it and love it, to then have literally thousands of people going, "Oh, your game's shit, but I haven't played it." Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, but most people don't operate that way.
they don't.
You
And
know, like
shout out to
I saw
those.
somebody getting mad that there was like an easy mode on Rise of Ronin, and I'm sitting there like,
What?
why? Why? Why does he's like, I'm more upset about Rise of Ronin having an easy difficulty than the Dragon's
And
Dogma
that
stuff, and I'm
and
like,
that
why are you
impacts
even upset
you
about that?
how? Like,
Like, were you upset that it doesn't have an easier mode? Is that what the fault is? Like,
very strange. And
we're so
I
fucking dumb.
really wish, look, because I want, as a creative person, when I make something and release something, whether that be a video game, which I hope to do in the future. I am actually working on my own project at the moment. I can't tell you much about it. It's still in the very early stages. Whether it be something like that, or a review that I've written, or a review that Jeff has written, I want people to read and see and play those things and give us genuine feedback, just like we do on this podcast. But I wouldn't want someone to come in here and go, oh, this show's rubbish. I've only watched 10 seconds of it, but it's rubbish. Do you know what I mean? It's like, we spend our time doing these things, and these people who make these games spend years of their life. Yes, they're being paid and it's their job, but I think that quite a lot of people forget that not only is it their job, but they're also genuinely passionate about it. There is very few game developers that are literally doing it just for the money. There are very, very few. I can tell you from experience. Every single
a lot of peers
one of these people is just, they are human beings. Let's remember that.
Yeah. It was like a lot of peers saying at GDC, it's like they do it for the immense job security and the work-life balance. Twitter praise.
I'm not saying to people, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying don't be upset about things and don't be angry and don't give your feedback. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying at least be genuine and try not to overreact. I know that we live in a society which is all about overreacting, and, it's like there's this big joke right now going on about how Hi-Fi Rush has higher review scores on PlayStation than it did on Xbox. And it's like,
Well, did you see that Twitter discourse around that guy? He's like, oh, I finally gave Hi-Fi Rush a chance, whatever, on PlayStation, yada, yada, yada. And then you go back to his tweets like a year and some ago, and he talks about playing Hi-Fi Rush on Xbox.
Yeah, I saw that. It's just, there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on in the world these days. And I know that this is a hobby for so many of us, right? It's just a hobby. For me, it's a little different because I work in the industry. I've worked with some of these people, and it's the reason I can't talk about certain things, right? But it's still a hobby for me, and I still love games. And I want people to love games the way I do. But I think that for whatever reason, over the last probably 5 to 10 years, we seem to have forgotten that the people who make these video games are people. They are not robots. There might be AI in the video game, but the people making it are still people, and they have feelings, and they genuinely care about the thing they've made. And nobody sets out to make a bad game, for one. Nobody sets out to do something that they know the general gamer won't be happy with, but sometimes that choice is taken out of their hands. Let's also remember that, like, there is a business element to this thing that we all love, right? And I can pretty much guarantee you that any of these microtransaction decisions in any video game ever in existence are not made by the developers of the game. They are
unless they self-publish.
Yeah, unless they're self-publishing the game. And, I think we've all said before, free-to-play games are a little bit different because the way that free-to-play games make their money is that business model. But I'm pretty sure that no one on the Dragon's Dogma 2 team would have been sitting there going, ha ha ha, we're gonna, make this really hard to do in the game so that players then have to spend money to do, like, they don't think like that. it's certain things are forced upon them, yes, but they just wanted to make a really cool game that people would enjoy. So let's at least give them a chance and not just shit on things just because, It's like the amount of times I see games, whether they be Xbox games, PlayStation games, doesn't happen so much with Nintendo, weirdly, but an Xbox exclusive or a PlayStation exclusive automatically gets shat on by the other side. Just because it's not on your machine of choice or whatever. And it's like, if you haven't played it, don't judge it. It would kind of be like, I don't know, it would kind of be like, not, can you imagine, Jeff, because we both watch movies, can you imagine if I said to you one day, I'm going to write a review for a movie, but I haven't watched it? do you know what I mean?
I disable your logins.
Do you know what I mean? Like, how crazy would that be? And that's kind of where we are. It's people, like you said, not even reviewing the game. They are basically reviewing company practices which have nothing to do with the game itself. And that's really frustrating.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like, I'm not defending the DLCs.
No,
Like,
no.
I don't think they generally serve a grand purpose. Like, I know there's lots of people that'll be like, oh, I love the experience boosts because I don't have time to like grind. Like, okay, yeah, sure, go for it.
And like
And
I
at least
said,
Capcom did not put them in the game. Like,
yeah.
you literally have to like go outside of the game to your
Yeah,
platform
you have to
store.
actively search for them yourself to get to them. They're not pushing them in your face. And also, like I said, in a single player game, who cares about someone choosing to spend money just to save themselves a bit of time? I tell you now, like, I spent recently 80 to 90 hours playing Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, which I am still writing a review for. I've recently got back to writing that, and that will be coming soon. But I tell you now that if I had the option to spend a couple of pounds just to make myself level up twice as quick, I probably would have done it. Because that would have saved me a good 10, 15, 20 hours of gameplay. And it's not that I didn't enjoy playing the game the entire time I was playing it, but as someone who wants to play as many games as possible, that 15 to 20 hours that I probably spent grinding up levels and things like that is time I could have spent playing an entire different game. It's...
Yeah, I think Jeff Grubb said that he wanted to buy like the experience or the like level booster or whatever it was, because he was in the final area, and I guess it's like a gauntlet of a whole bunch of fights and stuff,
Yeah.
and I guess he was like under leveled when he even got there.
But that's exactly what I mean. Like, in a single player game, it affects nobody, and that's why I actually think, whether you like it or not, and I'm not trying to, like I said, I'm the same as Jeff. I don't want to defend these things, because I do think they can get out of hand, and I think we're both very aware of that. You know, there's a reason loot boxes are the way they are, because that is predatory behavior based on kind of just trying to get players to spend as much money as possible. But I think things such as time savers are, especially when they're priced at such a low level normally. I don't know the price of these Dragon's Dogma 2 things, but normally in a game like Assassin's Creed or in Resident Evil, you're talking about a couple of pounds per thing if you choose to do it, and it's going to save you some time. Like, I know loads of people that play these Resident Evil games, but because they want to play it through and just have fun, they will spend the few pounds to get the gun with unlimited ammo. Do you know what I mean? Like, and who cares?
I'm trying to find the microtransaction prices on Twitter through a screenshot, but keep on.
But I think as long as they're priced appropriately, and as long as they are not affecting your personal experience of the game, which In Dragon's Dogma, from what we're hearing from everyone that's played it, it doesn't affect your personal experience of the game, then there's no issue with it. To me, the only issue will happen, like I said, if we start sliding down this slippery slope and we then get, if we get a situation where they start level capping people in RPGs and you have to pay for a microtransaction to basically put your level cap up, that's then a problem, especially if you can't finish the game without increasing that level cap, right? Because that would be them trying to make you spend money. But that's not what they're doing. Like, allowing people the option to save themselves some time or experience the game more in a way that is in line with the experience they want, I don't think is an issue. I think the only issue really comes from the fact that we're used to, people of our age and older especially, are used to a time where cheats in games were free, right? So, like, years ago, you would put a code in and you would get a gun with unlimited ammo on Resident Evil for nothing. And I think that's where some people's issue comes from, is that some of these things used to be free and now they're charging for them. But I'll tell you what,
Yeah.
it's not quite.
Games also used to be cheaper to be made back then too.
Yeah, they were cheaper to be made. These games need to make more money somehow. Would you rather that they blanket put every game up to, you know, would you rather they put every game up by $10, or would you rather that they just had some optional time
We've done that
savers for the
twice in
people
the
who
past
wanted them?
10 years.
Precisely. So I just think people need to calm down a bit with this stuff. As long as it's not
Like,
ruining your
if
experience.
they were legit, if the DLC, like if the things that were there were like legit worries, this would be a completely different story. But the fact that these items are things that you already get in the game and
Like I,
can already get
like
in
I
the
said,
game.
if they were locking certain level progression behind these microtransactions, or even if they were doing the Sega thing, right, which I will be calling out in my review, if they were doing the Sega thing of locking New Game Plus behind certain editions of the game, or an add-on that you can buy separately, that's an issue, because New Game Plus has always been something that's been free, and therefore you can't do that. Like, that's not acceptable. But that's not what they're doing here. Like, it could be much worse than this, and I get it. People when they see things like this always jump to the worst case scenario, which we've spoken about before with other pieces of news. And I do understand it, because that is the society that we live in now, in the age of social media, where most people don't even get full context for things, and they see one tweet and go, "Oh my god, this is the end of the world." Like, I would love to, like, I genuinely love to know, going back to those reviews on Steam, right? I would genuinely love to know how many people literally saw a headline on a news story about this and went and left a bad review on the game without even actually looking into the context
There's
for
tons of people that
themselves.
think that everything is like that they're selling is like locked, like it's just not accessible in the game. There's
Well,
tons of people.
there you go. So hopefully we've provided some additional context. Um, we will both be playing the game over the coming weeks, so we'll let you know how our experience is. But for now, let's carry on with the news, Jeff, because I know we have some more. So what do we have up next?
All right, so there's been some news actually that's come out of Overwatch 2. I was just reading the Jason Schreier report where they were talking about how like the Overwatch team has not received their bonuses because the game has not been doing well. Um, but Overwatch 2's PvP mode has been reportedly permanently scrapped by Blizzard as they struggle to find the focus for kind of what they're trying to do here, because Overwatch 2 has not been in a good place. So this is from VGC. According to Bloomberg, the PvE mode, which received 3 missions in 2023, will receive no more content due to the initial pack selling poorly. It's also claimed that as part of the company-wide reduction in staff, the game's PvE department was heavily affected. Overwatch 2 developers were informed that the company does not plan to finish any of the remaining planned PvE content. The report also claims that in late 2023, members of the Overwatch 2 team were told that based on the game's poor financial performance in the first half of the year, they shouldn't have received anything in regards to performance-related bonuses. Since launch, the game has faced a difficult road as it struggles to make a case for the release of a full numbered sequel rather than an update. People have to remember that you cannot play Overwatch 1 anymore. That was completely overwritten by Overwatch 2. In a developer update released on Tuesday, game director Aaron Keller said that players will no longer have to purchase the premium battle pass to unlock new characters at release or grind for hours to unlock them through the first free track of the battle pass. Heroes are one of the most exciting additions to the game, and we want all of our players to have immediate access to them when they launch, which is why I'm thrilled to share that venture, and all future heroes will be free for all players when they launch. So this reeks to me of desperation. When you take paid things like characters and all that kind of stuff and just then make them completely free, it means you're trying to reach out to every single player who has like joined that game, saw that the character they wanted was locked or whatever the case is. I haven't played Overwatch 2 and since it came out, um, and doing this, but the only reason I was even interested in Overwatch 2 at all was the story campaign that they were um,
I think
that
that's the case for a lot of
justified
people.
why there was a 2.
Yeah,
Like, the
yeah,
only reason it has a 2 is because they were doing that mode. And the fact is, like, you can't even go back and play Overwatch 1. So, like, that is a game that is completely lost to history.
yeah, yeah. It's this whole situation, like, since the launch of Overwatch 2 has just been so strange. Like, it's a very weird situation, to be quite honest. Like, why
Yeah.
did they decide to overwrite the original game? That's strange. They, why? I don't really know. Like, I don't. I've only played it a little bit, so I can't speak on it. But
Yeah, I don't like it.
it just seems strange to me because, like you said, I think the majority of people were only buying into this game essentially for things that are now never coming. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, well, what was the point of ever doing the game? Like, I don't know. I don't want to be too down on things, but yeah, this is a really strange situation. I agree with you that it comes across as somewhat desperation to maybe try and get more players back into the game of like, oh, here you go, we're just going to make everything free now, because the only situations I can think of where that has ever happened in a game is like, oh, we're shutting down soon, so because we're shutting down this game soon, everything is free for everybody for the next so long. Do you know what I
Yeah, that
mean?
was like the Crash Team Rumble or whatever. They
Mm,
unlocked the entire battle pass or whatever the case was. But yeah,
yeah,
like Overwatch has been in kind of a weird space because when the first game was out, it was one of the most popular PvP games out there.
yeah,
It took multiple Game of the Year awards, um, and Overwatch 2 should have been bigger and better, but reducing the player size um, down for your team by one, that wasn't a good move. Canceling the whole reason that your game has a 2, that also is incredibly dumb. Like they just have made a series of blunders, and like I know the new Blizzard president is looking at the bonuses and stuff. She said that she's kind of like too new into the role to kind of figure out, exactly what's going on to make a statement right now. Um, but like there's got to be because you gotta figure like the people that are working on the Overwatch games right now, they likely want to transfer to a completely different Blizzard studio. They want to go, hey, I'd rather go work on Diablo and like get these bonuses or whatever the case is. So it sucks to kind of see this team essentially being kind of like, the stepchild of Blizzard essentially when they were like completely on top of the world even like, a couple years ago.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's very strange. Hopefully, you know, Blizzard is now owned by Microsoft. They have new leadership in place, and hopefully things can turn around for them. But turning turning a massive ship like that, like a company as big as Blizzard, takes a lot of time, right? And unfortunately, I think some of these projects are running out of time, quite frankly, and I don't think, it's seeming like maybe Overwatch 2 is has not got much longer left. I hope I'm wrong, but this
Like
does.
people are still playing it, just nowhere near the numbers
Yeah.
that Overwatch 1 had.
But maybe it can have somewhat of a Halo Infinite situation, right? Because I have seen a lot of people jumping back into Halo recently, and I think I saw a story that um every week or something like that, Halo's getting like about 1 million players now every week, which is, I know that's not a big number, but
Yeah.
considering it's a game that at one time in its life was struggling to get 100,000 players a day, and it's now regularly getting over that. Like that game has had somewhat of a turnaround, and hopefully Overwatch can have the same situation. But who knows? I want to. There is, because I just checked. I know that you've got some news stories prepared, but there is one that I'd particularly like to talk about, just because I mentioned the game recently, and that
Sure.
was Infinite Wealth. I believe we have some news about how that's been selling. Um,
Yeah.
so why don't
30.
you let
Yeah.
people know?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you were adding a new news article. That's how
no,
you
but
were wording that.
no, but I have something to say on it, and that's why I want to talk
Oh.
about that one.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, again, this is from VGC. Like a Dragon studio head was surprised by Infinite Wealth's strong early sales. In an interview with 4Gamer, translated by Automation, Masayoshi Yokoyama, who was also the executive director on Infinite Wealth and helped write the original story, says he didn't expect the game, sorry, to sell as fast rate from day one. As Yokoyama explains, the Like a Dragon series, previously known as Yakuza in the West, tends to sell at a slow rate. A word of mouth spreads, and the audience eventually gets around to buying it. However, this time the game shipped 1 million copies within its first week, a rate Yokoyama wasn't expecting. We have a press release about how Infinite Wealth sold over 1 million copies worldwide in 1 week following its release, but it's really a speed we have never experienced before. Like a Dragon games sell well in the long run, rather than right off the bat. This has been the case ever since the series' early days. It has an adult player base after all, so there's no rush. People hear about the game from their friends, they happen to come across them, and that's how the titles grow. And that's why the way Infinite Wealth started off was quite surprising to me.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, like it's I mean,
I mean,
bridging the gap between the older Yakuza games by bringing in Kiryu
yeah,
is huge.
yeah.
Bringing in the fact that it's moved away from the standardized combat
Yeah.
into like the
I
turn-based
think
stuff.
I think the
Like
other
there's a lot
thing
of good reasons.
the other thing as well is that I think it might sound silly, but changing the setting or adding a new setting that is westernized is also going to help it sell even more, because
Yeah.
some people will buy a game purely based on where it is set. Like, those people out there do exist. Um And I wonder how much that played into it. Obviously, the games, as they have become bigger in the West over the last sort of 5 years, are also being marketed more in the West than they previously were, and I think that's probably helping as well.
Yeah.
But where I wanted to go, and it does lead to kind of another conversation that's based on recent news, is that isn't it crazy how we've had several kind of big RPGs this year that have sold really well. Infinite Wealth is one of the best selling in the franchise so far, the fastest selling in that franchise. Persona 3 Remake, I believe that they said that also got to a really good sales number. I believe that hit 1 million in its first week as well. And so it's like, these kind of games, there is an appetite for them. And then you have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which we spoke about previously, about how those sales are kind of not doing so well. But I saw someone, I think it was Christopher Dring, mention this week that like the sales are actually getting worse for that game. Like, they're not even improving, as we're like, one of the things that the guy speaks about there with the Yakuza Infinite Wealth and that kind of franchise is that normally word of mouth will help them sell more over time. And for whatever reason right now, word of mouth is not helping Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And I can't quite figure out why.
It's a platform exclusive right now. So the fact that, because the first one came to PC.
It did,
correct?
but not straight away. It came to PC
Yeah.
later.
I'm just making sure that it came to PC.
Mm-hmm.
So the people that are likely excited for it are probably going to be on PC, and they're probably just waiting.
That's true, and there are there are more PC players these days as well, right? Like, that's a rapidly expanding market. But it just made me think, and I just
Square's.
I'm gonna be interested to see how Dragon's Dogma 2 sells in comparison, because I know that isn't Final Fantasy, but it's still a similar type of game in terms
and
of
a
being
lot
an
of people are
RPG.
using the Dragon's Dogma thing for clout. Like, they're trying to, like, they're probably at home playing it right now. It's the same thing as the Call of Duty boycott guys, where they're like, I'm not playing this shit, and then you check their Steam activity and they've played it for 76 hours.
That's true.
So they're at home playing Dragon's Dogma right now. I'm like, man, this game's fucking amazing. This game's fucking shit. And I'm like, oh my god.
I'm gonna be interested to see how that sells in comparison, but seeing that sales success of Infinite Wealth and hearing that, because I also think the other thing I wanted to point out with this particular story is a lot of people seem to think 1 million sales isn't a lot, and I think it's because people look at it as, if you release on all platforms apart from Nintendo, let's not include them for a minute because they are somewhat limited by their hardware. If you release on all of the kind of powerful platforms, Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, you have a potential for hundreds of millions of buyers, right? At the start. Then that potential gets smaller based on your style of game, etc., etc. So I think that a lot of people think, how can a game only sell 1 million and be deemed a success when it has tens of millions of potential buyers? But it's
budget.
It's the budget. One, it's the budget that's kind of spent on the game, and two, it's about how much does that franchise normally sell, right? So if we look at the Yakuza Like a Dragon franchise, they probably only sell a few million copies per a game in their lifetime, generally speaking, I would imagine. Especially because at one point they were exclusive to the PlayStation platform, right? So that wasn't going to help their sales either. And so I think that people need to remember that 1 million sales is a lot. Like, There are literally thousands of games a year that would love
Yeah,
to get a million
it
sales.
depends on the budget of the game though. Because if you are making a game like say Spider-Man 2, a million
Of
sales
course,
isn't going to
of
even
course.
cover like a fraction of your development costs.
Yeah.
So like a million is great for certain games, especially things that are niche.
Well, one thing I
But if
would
you're
say
making
is
a game that
we don't actually know whether that million cells represents a profit on Infinite Wealth. I would imagine it
yeah,
doesn't.
trying to find that production budget, but
I I would imagine that it doesn't represent a profit, but it's hard to say because the way that they produce those games is clever in the sense that they do reuse a lot of assets because the city is built that, do you know what I mean? Like a lot of the settings are built like, yes, Hawaii is a new setting, but a lot of the places and a lot of the systems are built already, so you're not spending time doing that on the next game. It's quite an efficient way of making, and I think that's how they managed to release 3 games in a 12-month period, right? Yeah, okay. One of them was a kind of side game, and one of them was this remake, but they still released 3 games in a 12-month period. And I don't think many studios could do that. So I am glad to see them having some success. I'll be interested to see if this game, as we kind of head towards award season later this year, if this game does pick up any awards. We've obviously had more awards being given out recently to last year's games at GDC, because that's been going on this week. Friend of mine's there right now, so he's enjoying that. But I'm glad to see the success for this game, and I can't wait to see if it does win some awards as we head towards the end of the year later this year.
well, speaking of the awards that have been handed out recently, GDC took place, so we saw the Game Developers Choice Awards, which is all voted on by developers. So yeah, I watched the event. It was hosted by Alana Pierce, who is notable in the industry. She's also a writer for Sony Santa Monica, and the award show was actually pretty decent. It really put a highlight on a lot of um, the hardships that developers have faced. There were several in that room essentially that they don't know if they're going to have a job next week. That's like a lot of that the case with that. But
Who
it
would have
was
thought, Jeff, that an award show about developers, essentially by developers, could do a good
yeah.
job?
Well, yeah, like because like Alana had mentioned that she like a few weeks after the previous um GDC awards,
Mm,
she was contacted to host. And since then, we've had 2 waves of layoffs. So
yeah,
she was kind of even unsure about kind
that's
of how to approach um, the awards and stuff like that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
pretty much everybody talked about the hardships. Like even Larian, the president of Larian, Sven, he even got up on stage and he was like, "This game in the game industry has just got way too fucking greedy,"
yeah,
and like,
yeah,
and this was coming from a guy that literally took Game of the Year at almost
yeah,
every single award show,
and has made a
including
hell of a
GDC.
lot of money on that video game.
Yeah, like that's the thing about it is like yeah, he's 100% right, and everything even
Mm,
Alana was saying where they've had to watch their friends lose their job and how it's impacted like
yeah,
their families and stuff. But
yeah,
the awards, however, here, so let's take a look at them. So this is the 24th annual GDC Awards. So best debut went to Venba. Venba's an absolutely
yeah.
fantastic game. You can beat it in a sitting. It's on Game Pass. If you have the chance to check it out, do so. Best visual art was Alan Wake 2. Best audio was Hi-Fi Rush. Best narrative was Baldur's Gate 3. Social Impact Award went to Venba. Then we also Innovation Award was The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Best Technology is also Tears of the Kingdom. Best Design went to Baldur's Gate 3. Audience Award went to Baldur's Gate 3. Game of the Year went to Baldur's Gate 3. Ambassador Award went to Fozzie Mesmer. And the Lifetime Achievement Award went to Yoko Shimomura. Um, and
Can
like
I
the
just
award show,
say,
pretty good.
can I just say as well, how maybe it's just because I do have that developer part of me, but who is going to win developer awards is so much easier to figure out. Like you know who the devs are going to vote for because it's purely which game did each thing the best on the like on the almost like most objective level possible. And I'm not saying that game devs are objective, but they're looking at it from a completely different angle to other people that
Oh
are.
no, I honestly I thought Best Tech would have went to Spider-Man 2
Oh, okay, yeah, I could see that.
because like fast traveling that quickly
Yeah,
in a
that
graphically
fast
intensive game
travel
like that
is one of
is
the best things I've ever seen.
disgusting.
Yeah, yeah, for sure,
Because
for
like the
sure.
tech in Zelda is fantastic.
I
Don't get me
think
wrong.
the reason I can imagine that Zelda won that award, and the reason that I would potentially have voted for Zelda if I was voting,
Yeah,
is
it's
that
because all that stuff should have broke the game.
is and not only that, but the tech in Zelda is more impactful on the gameplay experience, and not only that, but on an even deeper technical level, to run a game like that, doing that many things on a handheld machine that at the time of launch is already underpowered, there was some wizardry pulled off there. So credit to that team.
You know who that wizardry was though?
Who was it, Jeff?
Monolith Soft, baby.
I knew that was
That's
coming.
why. That's why that game did so well. Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
I knew that
That
was
team,
coming.
like that team has been involved with every major like open world kind of like Nintendo game for
Yeah,
like years. Like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom ran
yeah,
so well because of that team.
yeah. Credit to them and credit to everyone involved on all of those games that have won. I like I said, I didn't play Vemba myself, but based on everything I've heard about Vemba and seen of Vemba, I can
You can beat it in
absolutely
like 2 hours.
I can absolutely understand why that game won the awards that it won, because that's exactly what it is doing, right? Is about social issues and things like that. It's like, so it's gonna win the social impact award. That is like, it deserves it, well deserved, very good game from everything I've heard. And I love the thing I love about this kind of award show is that it's not just for show, if that makes sense. And it's genuinely about, let's celebrate the industry and let's celebrate the people who make these video games.
Yeah, and they let the developers talk. Like even Alana did like the please wrap it up joke and all that kind of stuff where she was like, "No, capitalism good." Oh, wait, it went away. Okay, good. Like they like if you get the chance to watch it, it's really good.
Yeah, for sure.
But
We have
no,
a
like
bit more
they
news as
they
well, but let's I do want to say before we move on, there was one award that I was genuinely a little bit surprised, and I'm not really, because Baldur's Gate 3 is Baldur's Gate 3, but I am. There is part of me where I really thought Alan Wake 2 would win narrative, just because of the way, not just because of the narrative itself, but the way it tells its narrative is so unique for a video game that I'm
kind of. But even then, like
surprised.
I was listening to a podcast the other day where they were talking about like the music type of thing
Mm,
with Alan Wake, saying that wasn't even the first game to do that. I have to
really
listen to that podcast again. There's another game where like the music
interesting.
rehashes parts of the story as it
Interesting.
gets to it. I'd have to really rack my brain of what I listened to. But I was
Interesting,
sitting here
yeah.
and I'm like, oh right, that's what Alan Wake did.
That's
But
interesting. That's interesting. I
like
didn't know
honestly,
that.
if you get the chance to ever play through Baldur's Gate 3
Yeah. I mean,
and you'd
I've
be like,
played
oh my
some
god,
of it.
this
I've
story is
definitely
amazing.
played some of it. It's just,
Yeah, but I'm
it's a
saying if
very,
you get the chance to play through all of it
it's a very
and then be
daunting
like, oh my
game,
god,
Jeff.
oh I know. If you get the chance to play through all of it and be like, oh my god, this game's amazing, just imagine
Mm.
there are like another 10 playthroughs that you can do of that
That
game
are
and get
completely
completely
different.
different
Yeah.
experiences from. Like
Yeah.
it's got the script on that game
Well,
is
well,
massive. I think they actually
a
said it was
friend
like
of mine has
three
played it
times the size of
through.
Lord of the Rings.
A friend of mine has played it through 5 times completely, and every time he said his adventure has been completely different. And that's 5 times through the game. So I know how crazy this game is. I just
But you know,
go on.
but you know what you do as a developer that has created not only Game of the Year across multiple award shows, one of the most defining games in the last decade. Do you
Hmm.
know what you do?
I know what
You
I
leave
would
it all
do.
behind. You leave it all behind. That's right. Speaking at GDC, the Baldur's Gate 3 director said the company has no plans for any DLC expansions or a sequel to Baldur's Gate 3. Instead, the Belgian indie developer and publisher, also known for its Divinity RPG series, wants to work on something new. We are a company of big ideas. We are not a company that is made to create DLCs or expansions. We've tried that actually a few times and it's failed every single time. It's not our thing. Life is too short. Our ambitions are very large. Baldur's Gate will always have a warm spot in our heart. We will be forever proud of it, but we're not going to continue in it. We're not going to make new expansions, which everybody is expecting. We're not going to make a Baldur's Gate 4, which is what everybody's expecting them to do. We're going to move on. We're going to move away from D&D, and we're going to start making a new thing. That's massive.
It is,
Because,
it
like,
is. But I think it also plays into that thing of like, this is not a greedy company. They could quite easily rinse this thing dry for years to come. They genuinely could. Like,
it could, but you got to remember what kind of return could they get on on the next one?
yeah,
Does it have to be bigger? Does it do the choices you make have to be grander? That to me makes it almost gives them a no-win scenario
yeah.
when it comes to something like
Well,
that.
because
So for
when you're
them to
doing a
just go
sequel,
completely fresh,
people. This is the problem that PlayStation have found recently, right? Is that when you're doing a sequel, just being
yeah,
a continuation that is slightly better isn't
yeah.
good enough. For most people, that isn't good
And people
enough.
treat it as DLC, or they're like, "Oh, they're reusing Kratos' boat animation.
Yeah,
Fuck this game."
yeah, and it's like, really? Like,
Really? Kratos had just woke up one day. He's like, you know what? I'm not gonna row from the right anymore. Fuck that noise. I'm gonna row from the left. Like I'm gonna go down ropes different.
do you know what the funniest thing is? The people who say that kind of thing, you know that they have no idea how a video game is made and how
If you've got a
expensive it
good
is
animation
to
that works,
even
that some
change.
guy spent like 7 weeks on,
Yeah,
you're gonna fucking use it again.
yeah.
You're not gonna throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's not like, all right,
That
everybody,
in
Kratos cannot
in
look the same.
put it this way,
Get a whole new design.
in reality, one animation in a video game, especially an animation like that, literally costs thousands of pounds or thousands of dollars of
Yeah.
development money to make. Why
Or
would
they
you
come
throw
from
that
an
away and
Unreal
start
store.
again? Yeah,
Like there'll be things like like mantling up over a barricade or something like that. It's
yeah,
probably an Unreal Engine asset like animation or something.
yes,
Like
yeah.
people don't understand that kind of stuff. So like I don't know. It's very interesting to see that Larian is going to do
Yeah.
something new. And the thing about it is they've got more credibility than ever before. They could be like from the
I
studio behind Baldur's Gate 3 comes bleh.
Do you know what? They won't, but in a really weird, kind of creative, curious way, in my mind, I would love to see them do something that isn't even an RPG. Like, I'd love to see them do something that is completely different. just to see
They're the new dev on Madden. I knew it.
just to see what they could do. Do you know what I mean? I always have
I
that.
would love for them to do another Divinity action RPG like they did, because
Hmm.
there's three Divinity games. Like
Yeah.
there's Divinity 1, Original Sin, Divinity 2, and then there's also just Divinity Dragus, or what is it? Dragon's Arcana or something. I can't remember the name of it.
Okay.
But it was like a third person action game.
Do you know what I think they're gonna do, Jeff? One thing they're not gonna do, which we'll talk about in a minute, is they're not gonna go to PSVR 2. I don't think.
Oh, let's move into that. All right. So a year after launch, PlayStation has reportedly paused PSVR 2 production due to slow sales. Imagine being a developer approached by Sony being, hey, do you want to make a VR game for a PSVR 2? Great, because we're going to suffocate the fuck out of that platform and make your sales just chug.
Hmm.
So, a new report by Bloomberg claims that PlayStation VR 2 shipments have been getting progressively smaller each quarter since the handheld launched in February of 2023, and that Sony has now paused production altogether. The report cites research from IDC, which tracks deliveries to retailers rather than consumer sales. So basically, what it is, you know, TLDR, they've tracked the parts that PlayStation uses to
Yeah.
make these headsets, and these companies are not receiving invoices
Yeah.
for those parts, which means that Sony's not making
Yeah,
any
it means
more.
they're not being made. Because if they're
Yeah,
not shipping in the parts, they're not
and
using them.
Sony is not going after these big VR games to bring people to the platform.
Yeah.
I guarantee
However,
you
I
that
want.
Half-Life Alyx
Mhm.
could bring in like anywhere between I would say about 5 million sales
I agree.
of that head.
However, because I would buy one purely for that game. However,
Yeah,
what I will say is I think the problem with VR is this vicious cycle that people, unless they're in development and in the industry, probably don't quite understand. And that is VR is never going to be massive because to be massive, it needs multiple killer apps over and over again.
it also needs to not be more expensive than the hardware
And
that you are buying it for.
not only that, the cost of developing these killer apps needs to be worth the risk. And right now, the audience size, the potential sales of a game are not going to cover the cost of the kind of game that needs to be on these VR
Yeah.
headsets
And
to
it
make
needs
it
to be
successful.
multi-platform as well. Like you're not going to find you I don't think you're going to find a developer out there who's crazy enough to release a big budget PlayStation VR game and have it exclusive.
Yeah.
And so
Well, put it
because of
this
that,
way: if they
they have
did
to bring it
that,
to MetaQuest.
right now, they'd be limiting themselves to a
Yeah.
maximum of 5 million sales. We know that they've sold 5 million. That came out uh, a little while ago. That it's I think there's a number out there that it's like they've sold around 5 million PSVR 2s, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to see here.
If if that number is accurate and is correct, which I saw the other day, it might have been Jason Schreier who shared it or somebody else. Um, if that number is accurate and correct, if you sell a VR game to every single one of those people, even if you sell it at full price, full AAA price, yeah, which you're not gonna do for a VR game, but if you're selling it as what $70 a time, times that by 5 million, yes, it's a lot of money, but you are barely covering the cost of development of a big budget game like that.
Yeah.
And
And there is
they're not gonna do that. They're not gonna take that risk
yeah.
because you're never gonna get that attach rate. You're never going to release a game that every single person who owns that headset is going to buy. Like,
Yeah, and there's reports apparently that they're trying to get the headsets working on PC, so it can be a PC alternative as well.
that doesn't
And
surprise me.
if that's the case, that'll do quite well.
Hmm.
Because it is a fantastic headset. Like
Yeah.
I've enjoyed playing the um, Until Dawn Rush of Blood sequel.
Nice.
I can't remember what it's called though.
No, I
Something
can't
knife or
remember the
something.
name of it, but yeah, I've
Um,
seen it. It looks good.
but yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. Like it's a great headset. But the thing about it is it's more expensive than a PS5.
Yeah.
It requires the PS5 to do anything,
Yeah.
like
If
anything.
if this thing, look, they could never do it, but I would wonder how successful this thing would have been if it was half the price.
Yeah.
If it was half the price, I actually think that they probably would have sold double the amount of units.
Hell, if this thing was like 70% the price and Sony actually had their own killer apps on it, because they only did the Horizon game and then they
Yeah.
like pieced them out of here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like like Sony has a history of releasing hardware and then doing fucking nothing with it on their own.
Yeah.
The PSV, the PS Vita, the PSP, like it had almost no Sony support after a while.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it goes back
So
to that.
Sony's got,
It goes back to that thing that we've said in the past about Sony, though, where the problem I think Sony have sometimes is they almost want others to prove that things are worth doing before they're willing to do it themselves.
yeah. And I know Jeff Grubb had talked about how that PlayStation didn't even want this, that it was Sony
Oh, interesting.
that
Okay, I didn't know
that
that.
specifically said that they wanted the headset,
Interesting.
something like that. Anyways, I could be misquoting them,
That's
but
yeah. I mean, I don't think they'll do another VR headset. Put it that way.
yeah.
I can't
Well,
personally. I can't see it.
our last news story is something that I've been waiting for actually quite some time. Not even the game, but who's making it. Marvel and Skydance New Media have unveiled Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra, a game being helmed by Uncharted 1 to 3 director Amy Hennig. As far as I'm concerned, Naughty Dog has just not been the same since she has left.
Mm-hmm.
Revealed during an Unreal Engine showcase at GDC, the game stars Drew Moreland as Captain America and Carrie Payton as Black Panther, and will release for unspecified platforms in 2025. In the chaos of war, worlds collide, a synopsis reads. Skydance New Media and Marvel Games share an original story where the ensemble of four heroes must overcome their differences and form an uneasy alliance to confront their common enemy. According to Skydance, the narrative-driven ensemble adventure will have players controlling an ensemble of four characters: a young Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, Azuri, T'Challa's grandfather, and World War II era Black Panther Gabriel Jones, a U.S. soldier and member of the Howling Commandos, and Nanali, leader of the fledgling Wakanda spy network. The game is the first title from Skydance New Media, a studio formed in 2019 by Hollywood production company Skydance. I can't imagine a better partner than Marvel for our first game, said studio president Hennig, who previously spent a decade at Naughty Dog where she was the creative director and lead writer of Sony's Uncharted series. The Marvel Universe epitomizes all the action, mystery, and thrills of the pulp adventure genre that I adore and lends itself perfectly to an interactive experience. It's an honor to be able to tell an original story with all the humanity, complexity, and humor that makes Marvel characters so endearing, and to enable our players to embody these heroes that they love. She has been trying for a long fucking time to
Yeah.
get a game made. Holy
Well, I
shit.
mean, she was at
Um,
EA for a while, right? Doing a Star Wars game that got canned,
yeah,
and then obviously, so we haven't had a game from her in quite some time. But what we have to remember is she still knows how to make a very good video game, and she's done it
yeah.
multiple times. um,
She made the last good Uncharted game. All I'm saying.
and so I personally am really excited for this, and seeing this cinematic story trailer type thing, I actually think sets up the tone really well for the game.
It's
Um,
kind of weird that Roger's sidekick isn't like I don't know what is it, Dum Dum Dugan or something like that, you know, like it's one of the other guys. But
So yeah,
or even
I'm really like, I can't wait for this game. I do find it a little bit weird that they're not talking about what platforms it's going to be on yet. I know that that's something that some of these games do, but if it's really coming next year and they were sure on that, I think they would be talking about platforms. Um,
I think the main reason they're not is because this is probably going to be on Switch too.
yeah, maybe, but then do we really think that's possible? Like, is the Switch 2 gonna be that much of an improvement?
Who knows?
We'll see
But
soon,
no,
hopefully.
like the trailer is really really good.
Yeah,
I
it
will say
is.
like their Captain America looks a lot like USA Agent
It did.
from
Yeah, I
the
thought the same. Yeah, yeah.
like he almost has that same kind of look
Cause
that
for a,
he did in
because
the
for a
Buffy show.
second I was like, oh, have they just scanned his face for a joke, like for a laugh? Like, I
Yeah.
really thought that. But do you know who isn't in
The,
this game, and apparently is in some sort of video game that was happening? Will Smith. Do you remember? Do you know anything about
yeah,
this one?
that was the other story that I brought up that I wasn't too sure if we were gonna have time for. So apparently last June, a game called Undawn, which had a budget of about $140 million, has only basically made about well, like last month it brought in about $287,000. So it's a 10-cent joint. Um, I've never even heard of this game. Not one whisper had I heard that there was a Will Smith game. So I have no idea um, where this game even came from. Um, it's a zombie survival game, so like this is like what the Days Gone or whatever type of thing where like again, like I've never even heard of this game. So I have
Yeah,
no
I
idea.
don't know. This is a weird one because you would assume that any game that Will Smith is ever involved in, we would hear about it. But then I guess Will
Yeah.
Smith isn't Vin Diesel, right? So,
No, like
so
Vin Diesel's like an actual gamer. I have no idea on Will Smith. Like I've never heard even an inkling that,
yeah.
you know,
And
that he play games.
speaking of Vin Diesel, I'm gonna drop some news that is gaming adjacent, and that is that the animated Arc TV show just randomly dropped on Paramount Plus the other day. So
Oh,
so yeah, it just like randomly dropped.
wow.
I don't know if they did it by mistake or I don't know what happened. But
Like that
it's
Stellar Blade demo, they're like, oh shit.
it's
They
it's
just accidentally like hit
it's
publish.
definitely on there. It's got an amazing cast. I haven't actually watched any of it yet, but given the cast that is involved, I
Is Vin
probably
Diesel
will.
in it?
He is in it, yeah.
Oh, okay. So it is tied to the game. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
I
I'll have
think
to
I think the way
check it
it's
out.
been told to me is that the animated show is essentially the prologue, if you like,
Okay.
for the upcoming Arc 2, which will actually have more of a story involved in it. Um so
Hmm.
we'll see because we know about these games that say they're something two and are meant to have a story, and then apparently they end up with no story. We spoke about one of
Yeah.
them earlier. Um
I haven't checked out Paramount Plus. Like I still have no idea if I even want to watch Halo Season 2 because apparently Master Chief doesn't have his armor on in like 90% of the season. So,
yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting for sure. But for now, let's get to what we've been playing. I think I'll go first because
sure.
I know that you've got a game that you're loving to speak about, so I'm
Mhm.
gonna give you some good time for that. But I'll speak about the short game first, and that is Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons remake. This is a game that I've reviewed. The review, by the time you're seeing this episode, will be up on the website, so go and read that. But when this game originally released in 2013, from the team at Starbreeze and the now famous Joseph Fares, who went on to make A Way Out and It Takes Two, which won Game of the Year and obviously has his own studio now. When this came out in 2013, I just completely missed it for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't know what came out in 2013 that would have made me miss a game like this, especially because it did actually have a brief period of exclusivity on Xbox. It came to Xbox 360 a month before it came to the PlayStation platform.
I think they had a demo, and I remember playing it and then having control both characters with each analog stick, and I was like, I'm out.
Yeah, so that is a bit of a weird thing and takes some getting used to, and I call it out in the review as I actually think it's an accessibility problem with the game, and I would have hoped that a remake would have maybe done more to offer some additional options there in
Well,
terms of a
they've got
different.
the local co-op, so
They
you could
do.
have a person kind of join you, and you control one brother, and then they control the other. So
Yeah.
it solves it there. But I do get you. Like, it is one of those things where it's like, even having like an AI assisted little brother or something like that.
Yes, yeah,
That
I think there were options that they could have done, because one thing I will say is I've never quite I've never quite experienced a game like this, and this is part of the reason that the game is going to rate quite so highly for me, is there's no voice acting in this video game. They do kind of, there is speaking in the sense of they do like the mumble like what the Sims do, but they're not speaking actual words, if that makes
yeah,
sense, or not understandable words in the very least. But for whatever reason, whether it's because they just frame things very well and the music's great and the visuals are great, I never once playing this game felt like I didn't know what was going on. I knew exactly what the story was without them ever needing to speak. And the way that this story impacted me emotionally without ever having to use words is something I've genuinely never experienced in any media ever. So I was really quite surprised by that, and I wasn't expecting that going in. It is a fairly short game. My timer on the Xbox says I beat it in 4 hours and 20 minutes, but I did have the game on pause for a little while, so it's probably more like 4 hours. Um, and I know people that have finished it in like 2.5 hours, so it is a short game that you could finish in 1 to 2 sittings, depending on how long you're actually playing for. Um, but yeah, it looks like I can't compare it too much to the original because I didn't play the original, but from what I can see on a kind of visual sense, it's a significant upgrade. I do think, based on things I've heard from others, it's not really a remake and it's more of a remaster. From what I'm being told, like I don't think they've changed anything significant. But yeah, visually stunning. Not, the way I describe it in the review is almost like a Netflix animated show or movie where it looks really good, but it's not necessarily the top drawer of animated movies that you would think of. You know, it's not a Pixar level of visuals. But it is still a really good looking game. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, the audio's fantastic, and most of all, like, I think this story is Joseph Fares' best story. He wrote the story, he's still credited for the story in this game.
yeah.
And yeah, I think it's his best story by far. And I think that, you know, I'd love to see him make another game like this. I just wish that I wish that you were able to play Brothers in the same way that you could play A Way Out or It Takes Two, which is have an online, like in this remake, they should have done exactly what Haze Light does, which is let's release it and let's allow you to invite any friend you want to play
Yeah.
the game with you and do it in online co-op. That honestly would have pushed the game.
Yeah, like because if this game's on PC, you can use Parsec and do that,
Yeah,
but not on consoles.
precisely. So for me, if they had added something like that, it probably would have pushed the review up by an entire point. Go and, like I said, the review will be linked below. Go and read it to see what my final score was. But I really, if you haven't played this game, for the price point that it is, which I believe is less than $20 if you're kind of in the North American area. I think it's
Yeah, it was on
around.
sale as well too
I
during
think
this
it's
first week.
around like £14 or £15 here in the UK. And for that price point, yes, it is only 4 hours maximum. But honestly, it's really worth playing. And if you haven't played it before, but you like, if you even had a small amount of like for something like It Takes Two or A Way Out, this is probably on a story level the best one of those three games. So I really, really recommend it. And there's lots of clever design here, which makes you feel really clever without making the game feel too easy, even though the game is easy, if that makes sense. Like, the game isn't meant to be hard, but it's designed in a way where you're just using your common sense to get through things, and I like it personally when a game doesn't treat you like you're stupid, and this game doesn't tutorialize anything. Like, there, and I don't mention this in the review, but there was one section of the game where I got to a point and I couldn't make a jump. And I was like, how the hell do I get over here? And I was just walking around for a while, and then I saw some goats, and I was like, oh, I wonder if I can interact with them. And I'm not joking. I just went up and interacted with them, with both of the brothers, and you just jump on the back of these like mountain goats, and then you start, just being able to make these massive jumps that you couldn't make before. And it's like, that was just me using my intuition of seeing this thing and, oh, can I interact with it and use it to somehow do what I need to do? And it was just really smart design that is not trying to overcomplicate things. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed it, and I really do recommend playing it. Like I said, the one negative for me would be the controls combined with the camera, which can sometimes screw you over.
Yeah.
So it's a shame that as a remake they didn't think more about trying to improve those things. But overall, it's a great game. So go and read the review, and I hope you enjoy that. I have played one other thing before I let you speak, Jeff, and obviously, as I've mentioned before, I'm not reviewing this game because I do have a connection with it, so feel free to take what I say with a pinch of salt about this game. But I have played Rise of Ronin, and I can now obviously speak about it because I did play it pre-launch, and I can kind of say that. Can't say why, can't say what I did, but I can't speak about anything I played pre-launch. However, I've played the first 5 hours-ish of the game, and I think that this game is going to be very divisive, because I think lots of people are really going to like it, and I think lots of people are going to jump into this game and go, oh, this isn't what I expected from this team. Because Jeff mentioned it earlier that someone was complaining that there's an easy mode in this game, and it's like, yeah, this is a Souls-like, it's a Team Ninja game. What was that last game they made? The Wolong Fallen Dynasty.
That was a different Team Ninja, I think.
It was, yeah. I think it's the same company, but it's a different team.
Yeah, it's a different division, just like Insomniac has multiple teams.
Yeah. But this team, the ones who made this game made Neo 1 and 2, I believe. And what they've done here is essentially take the formula of Souls-like combat and stick it into a Ghost of Tsushima Assassin's Creed style open world. But
Yeah, I'm all for that.
But along with that, what they have tried to do is also open it up to a wider audience, where it is, let's not make it just stupidly hard for the sake of it. Let's actually offer people options. And there are actually 3 different difficulty settings in this game. You've got Dusk, which is the easiest. You've got Dawn, which is kind of like your normal difficulty. And then Twilight, which is your hard. Normal seems to be the right balance for most people, because you will have kind of what it seems to be like on normal is that boss fights will be difficult, but your general encounters will be much more manageable. And if you've played a Souls-like before, that kind of might be what you like there. Easy, I have tried a little bit of, just to see what it was like. And I would say that for some people, the way I would describe easy is it plays more like Ghost of Tsushima. In a combat sense, where it's like you're quite able to just hack away at people. Stealth is more than a viable option in this game. Even not on easy, to be fair, stealth is a very viable option, because you do get guns, you get bow and arrow as well. You get, it's a good game. I genuinely think this is a good game. I really do think I have no problem personally with the visuals, because I still think it's an okay looking game. But I think that a lot of people look at it and go, but it looks last gen, and it's a next gen exclusive. Therefore, we're going to hold it to a different standard, and it's not good enough. And it's like, okay, and yes, it doesn't look as good as Ghost of Tsushima, which came out 4 years ago. But this also isn't made by a Sony first-party team that have resources and cooperation with other studios to do things that they maybe wouldn't be capable of on their own. This isn't the best looking game in the world, but it's also not a bad looking game. I think and what I would say is, if you haven't played a Souls-like before, this is the most accessible one to get into. And for me, in some ways, because it's open world, and because it's doing that Ubisoft style open world, in some ways it's the most enjoyable one. Because I loved Elden Ring, right? Or what I was able to play of it. I wish that co-op was easier in that game, so that I could play more of it, because that's how I like to play that game. But Elden Ring was good because it did something so different. And it did something so different in its world design and all these kinds of things, right? Whereas Rise of the Ronin has gone the other way, and it's gone, we will take the combat element of these games, because we know that that's what people like most, and then we will take the easy to understand open world design of a Ghost of Tsushima or an Assassin's Creed, and meld those two things together to make a game that will hopefully bring in an entire new crowd to this genre. I don't know if they're going to achieve that or not, because obviously the reviews on the game have been mixed. I believe it's sitting in the mid-70s right now in terms of critical reception. Or it was when I last checked it, at least. But from the early hours, I think that if you're looking for something that is like Ghost of Tsushima, but with slightly harder combat, if you so choose to have it be harder, then this is the game for you. It's a good game. You will enjoy it. there's all there you know there's ways to engage in co-op with other players as well. That's not something
Yeah.
I've actually done yet, but the co-op does
Yeah, I definitely
seem
want to check it out.
the co-op seems slightly more simple in the sense of the way that this game works is that you are in an open world, but every now and again you will get pulled into what I would describe as a mission scenario. And before you start the mission, it will say you will be able to choose an ally, which is like an AI companion, which you meet them in the game, you build bonds with them, they give you
Okay.
different rewards. You can do like character based quests with them as well. Um, because this does have RPG elements, so you're earning different gear with different buffs and debuffs and different ways of playing. There's I think it's 4 or possibly 5 different skill trees, and the way that you get skill points is essentially like Souls in a Souls game, but you have 2 levels of it. If you get up to a certain amount of souls, you earn a basic skill point, and then if you don't, you can go and bank those at a banner and automatically earn that skill point straight away, or you can take the risk to carry, or when a mission ends, you'll also automatically convert that. I can't remember what they call the resource in the game, but you'll automatically convert it into a skill point at the end of a mission as well if you have enough. But if you're out in the open world, you can decide to, okay, I'm going to take a risk and carry on earning this resource. And if you fill the bar a second time, you will actually get a specialized skill point and a basic skill point. And a specialized skill point will be like, okay, you might earn a strength skill point, and that will then be used specifically for certain strength based skills,
Mm.
or it will be used for certain intelligence based skills, and then you'll have your basic skill points, which also unlock other skills within those trees. So it's quite a good way of adding this risk reward system to even earning skill points. And I found that really enjoyable. But yeah, back to the way the combat and the co-op work. So you'll start like a mission. You might choose an AI companion, but within that menu, before you press start mission, it will literally say co-op, and it says tackle this mission with another player.
Okay.
And I don't know yet. I don't know if when you click that, whether it just randomly matchmakes you, or whether you can actually invite a friend. That
Yeah.
that I'm not sure on. But if it works that way, I tell you now that every Souls game in the future needs to have co-op be that simple.
Yeah,
Like,
Wolong was super easy to get somebody in as well too. But even like I still think the easiest is Lords of the Fallen 2 because you can literally have somebody just join you for the rest of the game.
that's amazing. That's amazing. I wish they were all like that. That would be great. But yeah, so I've enjoyed that. But Jeff, I know that you've been playing something that you are also planning to review at some point in the future. Um, and I think you've
Yeah,
put in quite a lot of time, right?
I've been playing two things. One I can't talk about yet for another couple days. But the one that I can talk about is I finally got code for Unicorn Overlord. I had tried little bits of the demo, and I was like, yeah, that's not too bad. And if I'm hopefully getting a code because it sounded like I was getting one. And then finally got it in my inbox. Um, okay, we haven't had a lot this year, and I will say like I'm loving Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But right now, Unicorn Overlord is my game of the year. Um, this game is so much fun. So this is Vanillaware, like this is the like the team for 13 Sentinels and Dragon's Crown and all that stuff. They've got a very unique art style. Odin Spear, I think, was theirs as well. Um, so this game basically, like the story around this game is that you have this character named Elaine, and he is kind of the prince of a dead empire.
Okay.
Basically, his mom sacrificed herself so that he could escape, while this evil force essentially took over the entire land. And your quest is to use this unicorn ring to become the unicorn overlord, I guess, to unbrainwash all of these people that have been consumed by this dark force that has just completely taken over the land.
Nice.
So you kind of go through each battle, a significant battle, and bring people to your team, or you'll go and save a village, or you'll go and do a side quests, and then or you'll go through the Coliseum and stuff, and you'll recruit these people. And how it kind of works is each um, each deployment you have is a 2 by 3 grid. So you've got 6 spots for I think a potential of 5 on each one, and you can make each of those deployments up to 5 people, but you have to be a certain rank in order to get past 2, to get past 3, to get past 4, to get past
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
so it progression blocks you from having like a team of 5 people. Like you have to get to a certain level up. And so you make these little people, like these little grids of all these people, and you place them in situations where, okay, I'm going to have my healers at the back, but I'm going to have my tanks at the front. I'm going to have this and that. So you have it has like kind of like the weapon triangle type of thing where it's like this is good against this is good against that.
Yes.
And then you make your teams of these diverse croppings of these different formations. And you use valor that you earn by completing missions and all that stuff to unlock more unlocked deployments, because each deployment has a certain amount of turns it can make in a battle. Now you can re-up that with items or finding camps around the areas or making them rest. But if they rest, they're vulnerable to attack. So you want to make them rest in the spot where they're not going to get attacked or you have cover. Because
Okay.
the moment that the moment an enemy and a person get into contact, they go into a battle. You can't back out of it. And it almost works like an RTS where you're taking your units and you're moving them to another unit, and then they will automatically run on their own and then attack. And the game is an auto battler. So the moment you hit start battle, you can take your hands off the controller. It does all of it. So the strategy comes from creating your formations. It comes from tinkering with each individual character, because you can go into a setting where it's like, okay, heals, and then you can set the parameters. So it's like heal person with the lowest health or heal tank or whatever. Like
Yeah.
it allows you to like pick an action and then the reason for that action. And then so you can customize your characters.
So
So
you're so
if
you're
you want,
basically you're basically setting up the tactics for your
yes,
characters to then deploy when they're
yeah,
controlling themselves.
yeah. And it's like, it is like the story is actually really decent. The voice acting is fantastic. There was like one point in the game where I'm like listening to a character talk and I'm like, that's V from Cyberpunk. I'm like, fuck yeah, like hearing her voice. Like there's a lot of really good voice acting in this game. The
Nice.
cutscenes are beautiful. Like it's
I
such a
mean,
stunning looking
I
game.
mean, I know you were enjoying this game because the amount of hours you've put in just over the last kind of week that we've been speaking about it.
And I'm at like
Yeah.
30 hours. And yeah, I've been putting in about like anywhere between like 6 to 10 hours a day, pretty much. And especially if I'm working. But no, like in between battles, you can run around as well, and eventually, like when you upgrade Elaine to his like new, because you get this is basically Fire Emblem. I'm literally not joking. It is like Fire Emblem but without the tiles, because like you can have character relationships. So you have the friendship things and stuff you can get. You can cook food with a bunch of people, and then that boosts their friendship as well. Like all the stuff that's in Fire Emblem is in this game, and so like you can upgrade their classes. So now I'm like a horse knight for Elaine. And now you can use the horse on the hub world to run even faster. And if you put a horse person in with Elaine and make them the leader, Elaine will move to the speed of the horseman. So like there's your party is based your party's stats are kind of based off the leader in a lot of ways.
Nice,
And
nice.
then everybody levels up. There's these special like ritual spots around the map that you can just grind.
Mhm.
So like you just sit there and grind, and then not only do you get experience for the characters that you're grinding, you get experience books that can use on the characters that you're not grinding. So if you get a character, a new team that's like level like 12, 13, 14, and 16, and your main team is level 17, you can use all those books on them.
That's
And it
crazy.
boosts them up if they're below level 20. So a 300 experience booster under level 20 will actually give 900 experience. So like
That's cool.
there's so many neat like this game respects the fuck out of your time. It is
That's good.
so
I
great.
like that. I
But
really
yeah, you
appreciate
can
that.
but yeah, you can run around the areas and collect resources, and then you go to like the towns that you liberate and you deliver stuff to make the town better, and then you can station a guard, and then you get
Nice.
better things in the shop, and
Wow.
then like you get side quests from leveling the towns up. You get renown.
I might
Use
have to
that
pick this game
renown.
up. It sounds like it's right up my street. I wasn't so sure when when I first saw the game.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was gonna
it
be
is.
but yeah.
It's neat. Like you use the renown to like then like increase the size of your parties, your formations, or unlock more
Mhm.
formations, or use that renown then to level them up to another class.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like the almost everything's voiced. The only things that are not voiced are like the small little chatting things that you have when you're around the
Okay, yeah,
towns.
yeah.
The most disappointing stuff that's not voiced is any of the personal character moments are not voiced.
Oh, that's
So when you
strange.
go up to a heart on the map and you're like, okay, this conversation is between Elaine and um, I don't know, say Ronald or something like that.
Mhm.
And then they'll have this little conversation. And there's three conversations per character, and none of those are voiced. And normally in games that don't have voice acting or they have limited voice acting, those are usually the most crucial because they're the most
Yeah.
like character specific stuff.
Yeah. That's one of the things that actually frustrates me about Infinite Wealth, which you will be able to read when I eventually finish that review, is
Yeah.
that you will have moments in that game where it's like you'll do a drink link with one of your party characters, right? And that will be
Yeah.
voiced. That will be like fully voiced. But then you'll have a random scene with them, or you'll have a scene that finishes off your kind of bond with them, if you like,
Yeah.
and it will have no voice acting. It'll be text boxes, and it's like
Yeah.
you've just done
Sounds
this
like they finished
entire
that
bit.
way later, or they
Yeah,
added that stuff after. But
yeah.
um,
So I can
the last
understand why that stuff's frustrating for sure.
the last things I'll kind of say is like so how combat essentially and moving around the map works is you have a central point that you deploy from that can't be captured. So sometimes it's good to keep a person there, and there's tons of difficulty settings as well too. Um, so basically, what you do is you use valor points, and you start with three, so you can deploy three, and then when you defeat enemies, it adds up a meter. When you start taking camps, it'll add even more, and then you can start deploying like your entire army out.
Nice.
And everything's level gated, so like you'll start a mission, it'll be like this is recommended for 15, you know. And so basically, you'll click on a character, and you can either move them, you can use a special attack that uses valor, you can use an item, or you can make them rest, or you can talk to some people. So they're like, "Hey, Elaine, make sure like let me talk to my sister. I can probably get her on our side." And so that is a chance for you to recruit those people. And then sometimes when you defeat enemies, they'll be like, "All right, kill me," and Elaine will be like, "Recruit them, kill them." And so then you can recruit them or whatever.
Nice.
But you move them to a spot on the map, and they'll attack everything on the way. So if you want them to keep moving, you want them to attack the thing that you're going for, and then they will basically move around the map to get there. There's obstacles like geysers and like mines and stuff or blockades, and you can use like some of their valor things to like eliminate those things right away. You can use items like canopies to essentially protect you from like the geysers and stuff that protect you from environmental hazards.
Okay.
So, and then basically, characters have like the special attacks that use Valor, and you can like if you have like an axe spinning one, which will attack like a radius. So if say there's like five enemies in a radius, it'll hit all of them. And if it only takes one Valor and you have five Valor, just do that 5 times and you'll kill them all without having to actually fight them. So there's a lot of neat little things, and like building
Yeah.
valor is easy because you just have to like keep winning to get earn valor. There's items that grant you valor. There's items that grant you bonus strength or bonus experience.
Nice.
um
Nice.
there's a lot of really neat things, and it just feels very fun to kind of move stuff around. It's kind of a like 13 Sentinels came out, and it was like an RPG with deep mechanics, and people thought that the mechanics were like the least impressive part of that game. Like all the character stuff and the story stuff was fantastic. This is them coming back and being like, yeah, no, we totally have this. You know, like we're definitely going to
Yeah, we can do systems, right?
we can do systems and stuff like that. So there's some um pretty neat shit in this game. Like it is just it's very, very cool. It plays super fun. It's absolutely gorgeous. Like this is one of the best looking games ever. And it's again, it's all because of that particular art style
Yeah.
that
Yeah, we spoke about that
Delaware
last week.
is known for.
How art styles can make a real difference to how games look, and most of the time they're actually more important than you know the technical side of visuals, because
Yeah.
you can have a game that isn't technically very good visually but looks good because of the art style. Brothers remake almost falls into that camp. There is
Yeah.
actually some technical issues with the visuals there, and I'm not saying they're anything that's game breaking or you're really going to notice, but if you look, for example, you will see the occasional slightly blurry texture, but it doesn't stick out unless you're really looking for it, because the art style of the game allows it to look that way and still look great. As so, yeah, I can totally appreciate that kind of thing.
So
Um, have you
the
played?
the last thing
Go on.
so the last thing about Unicorn Overlord though is if you want to try it, there is a demo that literally gives you about 7 hours of the game.
Nice,
Once you get to a certain point, I think it hits a timer, so it's about the first 7 hours or so. Try it, like try that demo, and the nice thing about it is that demo carries on to the full release, so you
nice,
don't have to replay
nice.
any of that
I
stuff.
might
It
give that a
is,
go then.
yeah, it is, and apparently it looks fantastic on Switch OLED.
Nice.
Um, like I've got code for Xbox, so I'm trying it on the TV.
Fair, fair. Um, yeah, I'm glad you've played that. I'm glad you're putting time into that. You're obviously playing something else that you can't speak about yet, but I'm sure you'll be reviewing that. Jeff's always reviewing things. I've
Yeah, that review will be out. What day is it here? It'll be out next week sometime.
Nice, nice. So I have obviously reviewed Brothers. That'll be up on the site right now. I am trying to get you that Infinite Wealth review as quickly as possible. Like I said, that got pushed down the kind of ladder slightly just because when we receive a code for review,
Oh,
that's always going to take somewhat of a priority, especially when it's closer to the launch of the game. Um, so I've been doing a few things there. Obviously, I had the Taxi Life review last week. Go on, Jeff.
yeah. I got one last thing I was playing since obviously I couldn't talk about it on the last podcast and stuff, and the review is out right now. That is Alone in the Dark. So we got
Yes.
code for that. I reviewed it. Here's the thing. It's got a good foundation for what that team could do in the future. I think that it utilizes Jodie Comer and David Harbour well, but only in their distinct campaigns.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
when you're playing as David Harbour, now his thing is the campaigns. This isn't like Resident Evil 2 remake where you have Leon A and then Claire B or whatever, and they're completely different playthroughs that they where they intersect, but it's the same story. This is the same story for each of their playthroughs. So Jodie Comer's playthrough as Emily, you go through all the weird paranormal shit and get to the same spot. In David Harbour's playthrough, he goes through all the weird paranormal shit and gets to the same spot. Now, there's different endings based off the collectibles that you collect,
Okay.
but the fact that it is the same story means that in David Harbour's playthrough, Jodie Comer isn't experiencing anything and she's boring as fuck. Whereas in
Interesting.
Jodie Comer's playthrough, David Harbour is like, "Where did you go? I'm doing all this detective stuff, blah blah blah," and then he fucks off for a little while.
Yeah, and
So
obviously
it's
because
not the
it's the
same.
same story, it's weird, right? Because it's like they could have
Yeah,
had them do different things at the same
like
time and then intersect.
yeah, like and they're saying like, oh, like the playthroughs are wildly different at some points. No, the playthroughs are absolutely identical, other than the personal missions that they get later on in the game. That's it, and like all the puzzles are the same solutions.
Yeah.
All the keys are in the same spot. Like it's the same playthrough. And that's the stuff that's really sucks about it because like in when I beat the game as Emily, I'm like, well, David Harbour was fucking useless in this game. They didn't do anything with him. Like Jodie Comer's stuff was fine.
I,
And then when I played David Harbour's playthrough, I'm like, this is what I wanted from him in the other playthrough. Like he
yeah.
was actually David Harbour's like kind of personality there. And then Jodie Comer did fucking nothing.
Jeff, I want you to tell us your story because you did play something else this week, or you at least attempted to. So I would like you to
Oh,
tell us your story of where you nearly broke your controller. What happened?
well, like I spent like an hour making my Dragon's Dogma 2 character. I was following like tutorials on YouTube on like how to get like the sliders right to make like a certain figure or like how to get the faces right because I'm like I want a really good looking face and I don't want to spend 6 hours tinkering with stuff. So I'm like I'll follow a bunch of guides
I
and I had
think
my
I'm gonna
character
go with the Timothy Chalamet. I think that's what I'm gonna do.
just play Liza P. Just play Liza P. You're fine. Um, but like and then I'm like okay, well like I want to try this out and I hit one little button and it took me right back to the create a character thing where you pick the default thing, and I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
I
I
can't
was
believe
just
that.
so bad. I'm
So
like, okay, I'm turning this
so I
off. I'm gonna go
guess that
back to
our
glory.
task for the next week is to at least play some Dragon's Dogma 2, and if we can, and
That's my
if
plan today.
and if we can both play at least some of it because we both own the game, then we can come back and give some impressions next week. So look forward to that. If you've been playing it as well, obviously let us know. I do have a question of the week that I thought of while we were talking about it earlier, and that is, what would make you buy a PSVR 2? I would like to hear from you in the comments or on social media. Would it be a specific game like a Half-Life Alyx, or would it be a changing of the price point? Like we said, you know, Jeff mentioned if it was 70% the price that it is right now.
PC activity as well.
Yeah. So let me know what would make you buy something like a PSVR 2 or any other VR headset for that matter if you haven't bought one already. Um, and then until then, like I said, keep an eye on the website. I hopefully will have more things coming out. I'm actually not working on anything for review right now, so I get a little bit of time to just do some fun gaming, which is fun.
Still hoping that that Planet Zoo code comes through for you.
Yes, yeah, we're potentially hoping to review that game, which is I believe releasing in a couple of days here. So if anyone's playing Planet Zoo as well, let me know what you're thinking of that, because that's one where if we do get a code for it, I will review it. As you've been told previously, you know, we're working on a limited budget here, me and Jeff. It's just the two of us. We're not a massive site, so certain things we unfortunately can only review if we get a code for those games, just because we are limited, you know. We can't buy everything. Jeff can't
Yeah,
buy.
like I would love to review Rise of Ronin,
Yeah,
like 100% from the time because I've got, you know, I've got Unicorn Overlord, which is like a 50
and
to
other
60 hour
things
game.
to review as
Playing
well.
Dogma, which is like a 50 to 70 hours game. I still got Final Fantasy. I still have like another 40 hours to put in Final Fantasy.
Yeah, Jeff takes all the big games. No, I'm joking. Jeff
Right.
Jeff tries to play all the big RPGs. That's his downfall.
I haven't even had a chance to try like Persona 3 or Persona 5 Tactica. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to try
Yeah,
those games at all.
but I am going to I'm going to take a little look around because a few things have come to Game Pass recently as well. So I may do, if I get some time and I get enough time to play enough of it, I may review something like Lightyear Frontier because that came to Game Pass recently. However, I don't know because we tend not to review games that are in kind of early access or game preview. So I need to look into exactly what version of that game has released and what the reason is that it's classed as game preview right now. Um, and then I'll figure that out. But I may review that. If not, like I said, hopefully Planet Zoo will come in. But if not, you'll see me at some point in the future. I have a few little requests in here and there, so hopefully something will come in. And if not, I'll be handling the news because I actually, at time of recording, put 4 news stories out fairly recently. So we do have more news on the site as well. You can go and check the entire roster for the upcoming Top Spin 2K25, for example. And yeah, so, stay tuned to the website, analogstickgaming.com, which is linked below. Jeff's latest review, whatever that might be at time of release of this episode, will be linked below. It might even be a brand new game that you haven't heard about yet, depending on when this episode releases. So look out for that. I'll have my brother's review linked below as well. Follow us on social media. We've got our own personal social medias there, and we also have the Analog Stick Gaming social media. Jeff, would you like to tell people what that one is?
Yeah, it's Analog STK Gaming, just because Twitter doesn't let me have long
Yes.
titles.
Yes. So follow us over there because we are going to be sharing a lot more stuff over there as well. Every review that
Yeah,
we
and
do,
if you're
some
on
of the
Blue
news.
Sky,
Oh,
if you're on Blue
yes.
Sky as well, it's necromancerasg.esky.social. But yeah,
Nice. And we will see you next time. Have a good time gaming and remember to always stay in the mix. But for now, it's goodbye.